Hey there, how's it going? My name's Feign the Opossum, and I have a problem. You see, about 10 years ago, I was a pretty big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. My first Sonic game was Sonic Generations for the PlayStation 3, and from day one, I was hooked. I've always liked franchises with loads of lore. You know, the type of thing you could get lost down the rabbit hole with, and Generations is literally a game celebrating 20 years of this franchise, so naturally, I became a bit obsessed. Like, seriously, I was digging through my old computer files recently, and I found this unfinished PowerPoint that just lists Sonic characters dating from September 19th, 2012. Why was I so cringe? Suffice it to say, I got pretty invested for a while, but I kind of fell out of the series by around, 2016. I didn't stop enjoying it or anything. It wasn't bad. Life just changed for me. However, a couple of months ago, YouTube recommended me a Sonic video for the first time in years. And I decided, what the heck? I clicked into it, and it wasn't much, just one of those videos that compared the original Generations cutscenes to the remastered ones. What was the new one called again? Oh. I guess I did miss a lot. Anyway, the video got me reminiscing about my enjoyment for the series, which led to a rather odd realization. I've not actually played most of the Sonic games. Generations was basically the only one, come to think of it. Well, that and Sonic R, twice, but that's a story for another day. With that, I decided that I needed to buckle down and actually work my way through this series. So I made a list of every game in the franchise to play and record my thoughts to as I went. However, when I'd finished my list, I found out that, it looks like other people had already done that. Like multiple other people have already done that. No matter, I'll just add all the comic books, right? Sure, there's like well over 900, but they'll probably be quick reads, so simple enough. Though, I suppose I should lump in all the manga too. And if I'm doing that, then I'll need to cover the cartoons, and the shows, and the movies. Oh, and there were those books, too, right? There were loads of those adventure game book things, and all those, like, promotional animated shorts and such, and those weird background art story things, and all the short form! The list got out of hand. Very, very out of hand. And it's probably not even complete. I'm sure someone will let me know of all the stuff that I missed. So, in an effort to preserve my sanity, I elected to not include ports for each game, unless they happen to be particularly notable. I also am not going to make myself go through every compilation title, though I will let myself play games within them. Do you know how much a Sega CD costs? In this economy? For PC emulation, I plan to only use it if I have to. I'm going for authenticity, or at least my completely arbitrary definition of such. As for everything else, I kind of just used my best judgment. Even the order I'm going to do this in is kind of debatable, with stuff getting released on different platforms and different regions at different times, not all of which being terribly specific. In sum, I'm just going to go with what feels correct enough. Anyway, this is where I've landed. I don't know if anyone's actually going to watch these videos, since people have already been talking about Sonic stuff on the internet for over 30 years now. I mean, what can I possibly add? Nowadays, it's all video essays, challenges, and creative stuff. Great videos, but not the kind of thing I feel all that equipped to make. Still, I'm excited to give it a shot, and hopefully some of you will go on this journey with me. Now, with all that introductory stuff out of the way, I can finally talk about good old Sonic the Hedgehog. So, Sega had it a bit rough in the late 80s. I guess that's one way to start it. The story, as I understand it, is that despite the whole 8 extra bits that it had over Nintendo's entertainment system, the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, wasn't exactly raking in the cash. Thus, in 1988, Sega of Japan held a sort of in-house competition to find a mascot character that could combat Nintendo's Super Mario, right? Well, after a few years and a number of attempts, artist Naoto Oshima would propose this guy, who, after some further workshopping alongside programmer Yuji Naka and some opinions from people in New York's Central Park, no, really, the Mr. Needlemouse concept would gradually become Sonic the Hedgehog, released on June 23, 1991 for the Genesis in North America, or July for the Mega Drive if you're from basically anywhere else. There's a whole lot more that can be said about Sonic's overall creation, but I'll save that for later videos. Trust me, it gets weird. As for my own relationship with this game, I actually didn't have to go out and find a copy for this video. I've owned one for a long time. You see, I used to visit this local comic book store that also sold old games for collectors. I've always been a big fan of old consoles, so on a visit about, 6 or 7 years ago, I immediately wandered to the back of the store where a bunch of original boxes were set up to show what consoles the shop had in inventory. Among them was a beautiful, pristine Sega Genesis box. A Model 1, too. You know, the type with 16-bit proudly stamped on the top that I thought would look super cool on my console shelf. And it was only $60. Rest in peace, pre-pandemic aftermarket prices. Anyway, I nabbed 2 games from the rack, Sonic 1 and Echo the Dolphin, and tried to, mentally prepare myself as I went to talk to the owner of the store. He always kind of intimidated me. Who am I kidding? He still does. After a brief conversation that was definitely only tense for me, he went to the back and retrieved a beat-up cardboard box.
You alright with the controllers being third-party?
Yeah. Here's my money.
Uh-huh.
And I learned a valuable lesson that day. Always check the box before you pay, because when I got back to the car outside, I opened the box to find 2 really janky controllers, a Model 2 Genesis, and a disappointing lack of 16-bit labeling.
Oh well. It'll still play games, right? It certainly won't cause problems for me later.
I then promptly went home and never actually played Sonic 1, outside of testing it a few times over the years to make sure it still worked. This was the whole of my experience with this game when I sat down with it about a month and a half ago. Yes, it really has taken me that long to make this video. But what, I hear maybe one of you ask, is the game actually about? Well, simply put, you play as the eponymous Sonic the Hedgehog, a blue hedgehog that can run at the speed of sound, trying to defeat the nefarious Dr. Ivo Robotnik to stop him from destroying the environment and cramming little animals into robot badniks, all while collecting 6 Chaos Emeralds for seemingly no other reason than, to make these weird flowers bloom and avoid the bad ending. Now that I think about it, the game's premise is kind of vague in the US manual. Now, the Japanese one has way more, like mentioning that the game is set on South Island. The Chaos Emeralds exist here in distortions created by the island moving around, and Robotnik is looking for the emeralds because they can power... nuclear weapons? Huh. I wonder why they left that bit out of the American manual. Whatever, I gotta be Sonic. Be atomic! So that's what I did. I entered Act 1 of Green Hill Zone, zooming around, grabbing rings, doing some supersonic spin attacks, and ultimately getting nicked right before the goalpost. Yep, only the toppest tier gameplay here on this channel, I do, eventually, recover from this and make my way through the rest of Green Hill Zone with minimal frustrations, fighting Robotnik at the end of Act 3, and taking way too many hits in doing so. Honestly, and please don't get mad, I wasn't all that impressed with Green Hill Zone. I didn't dislike it or anything. I just kind of felt neutral about it. It's a good Stage 1 kind of area, I'll give it that. The music's fine, the colors are vibrant, and I like the stretches where you can go really fast. It just didn't really impact me all that much, Though this may have been different if I wasn't so used to seeing it everywhere in later games. And speaking of that, I ended up seeing it a lot throughout this playthrough. See, Sonic 1 on the Genesis did not have a save battery, meaning that you have to beat the whole thing in one sitting, all without running out of lives or continues. It's not that long of a game or anything, but when you have the skill level of a sleep-deprived toddler, like yours truly, you'll end up hearing the intro to Green Hill's theme over and over and over. But hey, at least you'll have loads of attempts to get rings. Besides giving you an extra hit or 1-ups, collecting rings is a must if you want the good ending, since holding 50 at the end of a non-boss act will grant you passage to the weird and terrifying special zones, where the Chaos Emeralds lie in wait. And these can be a pain. You have to get through this maze thing without falling into a goal area so you can bust these color-changing gem ding floppies so you can hope to then fall into the emerald. The controls are either too stiff or too slippery, the blocks don't always trigger when you bump into them, if they're even in the game to begin with, and I feel like this background is a manifestation of my deepest insecurities. At least you can get continues if you collect enough rings, which would prove invaluable later on. It's not too big a deal if you miss an emerald, though, because you can always go back and just try it again on a later act. However, there are only so many acts that can lead to special zones, so there is a point of no return if you fail enough of them. I wanted to get all 6 Chaos Emeralds for the good endings, so I had to get somewhat decent at these, which was easier said than done. There! Get through the thing! Why? Anyway, now we're on to Marble Zone, which is completely different from Green Hill. I'd read online before I'd started playing that Sonic 1 could be a bit slower than later series entries, and Marble Zone is easily the first evidence of that. There's way more of a focus on platforming and puzzle solving, though the puzzles weren't all that complicated, admittedly. It's also really easy to get crushed. Here's the thing. If Sonic gets sandwiched between the floor and a particularly aggressive obstacle, it's lights out, regardless of how many rings you've got. And Marble Zone makes regular use of this mechanic. That and spikes. Surprise spikes. With no invincibility frames. There's also these obnoxious caterpillar badniks, which separate into tiny spike balls of doom if you spin attack them anywhere but the tiny hitboxes on their heads. I eventually realized I could just do a spin attack on the ground with low momentum, but I still had trouble with them in tighter spaces. I usually just avoided them when I could. But the Robotnik fight in Act 3 wasn't too hard, though. He drops these fireballs down, forcing you to jump between the 2 platforms. However, I found that if you hit him early while he's still moving across the lava, the flames on the other side will die down with more than enough time to just jump across again. Overall, Marble Zone was alright, though you had to be way more methodical with it. It wasn't my favorite, though that may just be because I'm kind of impatient. See, even Sonic's miffed. Now, next up is, oh yeah, it's Spring Yard Zone! This was easily my favorite area of the game. It's just so fast and bouncy and springy and The game lagged? Yeah. I'm using a Model 2, so the blast processing must have not kicked in. But can we talk about the tunes for this zone? Because it's probably one of my favorite songs in the game. I will admit, the spike balls did get a little irritating, and I got checked by those roller enemies more often than I'd like, but Spring Yard was definitely a breath of fresh air after being cramped in Marble Zone for 3 acts. I had a lot of fun just poking around, trying different paths through the stage, and finding little secret areas. It was also pretty easy to get enough rings for special zones, which is a plus. Robotnik was a bit more frustrating this time, though. He plummets down with this spike attached to his floaty thing. What is this, it was the Eggmobile? Is that what it's called? Anyway, it pulls up and destroys the ground you're standing on. The problem is, I had a bad habit of getting stuck in him, and every time you die, you have to cross over this insta-death chasm thing just to get back to the fight with no rings anyway. Still, it wasn't too bad with enough practice. No. The real challenge was yet to come. Labyrinth Zone. I'd heard tell of this monster, this cruel and horrific beast of a zone. This introduced the most nerve-wracking mechanic in the entire game, one that all those who have come before me still shudder to think about. Yeah, drowning. It's drowning. Labyrinth Zone is, as you can see, full of water. And if Marble Zone was slow, then Labyrinth is an absolute slog. It just feels so sluggish to get through, and you have to wait around so you can get air bubbles to keep from dying. And on top of that, there's the spikes, and the spears, and the moving platforms, and the random fire-spitting owl-looking gargoyle head things. This whole zone wants you dead. Even the Bubbles team with the badniks to get you axed off. It honestly wasn't all that hard to traverse, though, despite being a labyrinth. However, it did take me a bit to figure out how to get out of the infinite water slide in Act 3. Speaking of Act 3, it turns out I actually stumbled on the quick route through this act by standing on this falling block, and I'm glad I did, because I would soon find myself restarting it. Many times. See, after jumping across these floating corks and climbing all the way up the stage, I came to a shield power-up and the Robotnik fight. Well, okay, it's less of a fight and more of an obstacle course. The water rises as you make your way up, and all you have to do is make it to the top, dodging these spears and fireballs on the way. Easy, right? Well, on my first attempt, I immediately lost my shield, then my rings, and then my life. Ah well, I can just try it again, right? Except the last lamppost checkpoint is all the way down here with the corks, meaning you have to make the entire climb again with no rings. Out of my way, you bargain bin grounder! At least they give you the consolation shield at the top, but it hardly matters because you're likely just going to lose it and fall all the way back down to the bottom again anyway. So many times. I've got a confession to make. When I first game overed here, I actually decided to stop recording my playthrough. I didn't think I'd be able to get through it, at least not anytime soon. Jokes aside, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not very good at video games, so I figured it was just outside my skill level, and I'd already read loads of posts about other players never getting past Labyrinth Zone. However, I ended up having some free time the next day, so I popped the game back in and tried it again off camera. And I actually got through it. I ended up beating the final boss too, though I only got the bad ending. This really gave me a confidence boost, so I decided to hook up my capture card that night and try again. And now, I had a strategy. First, get a good run in Green Hill. Extra lives by getting 100 rings, as well as getting the first 2 Chaos Emeralds. If I died before Marble Zone, or didn't get one of the emeralds, reset, try again. I didn't want to take any chances. After beating the first Robotnik fight, I'd just take each act slow so I could preserve rings for the special zones. Also, I had to get a continue in each one. Take us no chances! After about an hour of attempts, I finally got a run going and got back to Labyrinth Zone. The plan here is kind of ironic, actually. Just don't rush it. If the water catches up to you, and it probably will, just let it pass you, then keep going as if it weren't there. I found that getting hit is a way bigger threat than drowning, even if the music suggests otherwise. It still took some attempts, but I was finally able to beat Labyrinth Zone while recording. You are free, friend Rockies and Peckies! Flee these ruined halls of despair! I don't feel an intense hatred for this area or anything like that, but I'm glad I don't have to struggle through Labyrinth Zone's more challenging sections again. Anyway, we finally made it, Starlight Zone, and continuing our pattern, this one is way faster than the previous area. I did find its setting a little confusing though. Where exactly is Sonic right now? It looks like there's a bustling city in the background, but I thought South Island was mostly natural. I don't see a city here on the title screen. Is this some sort of construction site that Robotnik set up? Why would he need a full-blown city, though? The manual says that this is a world that twists like a corkscrew. What the heck does that mean? The Japanese manual doesn't help much either, but these little doodles are absolutely adorable, so I'm willing to forgive it. Beyond that, though, I honestly don't have much to say about this place. The music's great, the loop sections are fun to go through, and I felt super smart when I realized I could get more height off of these seesaws by launching the spike ball a second time. Oh, and the boss was cool. Robotnik drops these spike balls down onto more of those aforementioned seesaws, and you can either launch them up at him as he passes by, or they can launch you up at him. Now, I'm not very good at it. I don't have much negative to say here. The fans were a little wonky at times, I guess, and I never could quite nail down the arcs that these bombs' shrapnel moves in. Still, these are minor points. I didn't have as much fun as I did in Spring Yard Zone, but Starlight was definitely a highlight for me. By this point on my final run, I'd managed to get all the Chaos Emeralds. At the ends of Green Hill, Acts 1 and 2, Marble Acts 1 and 2, Spring Yard Act 2, and Starlight Act 2. I messed it up on all these other ones, just ignore that. But now, we're here. The final area, Scrap Brain Zone, and buckle up, buckos. This was a doozy for me. I don't remember it being that difficult when I first got through it off camera, but I struggled with Act 1 quite a bit when I recorded this. The bomb enemies from Starlight reappear, as well as... not these guys again. And what's worse, there are loads of fire jets and shock balls that limit your movement, crushers that kill Sonic in one hit, and platforms that I guess have better places to be. And this is just Act 1. Scrap Brain really felt like a difficulty jump, at least after the relative ease of Starlight Zone, though that's probably just me. I didn't try the higher path until after I'd recorded my first completed run. And yeah, it was way easier. After numerous missteps that made me burn through 2 continues, I was able to get through and start Act 2, which I had an easier time with overall. I don't have a lot to say about this one, though it did have these cool Mario Galaxy looking things to run around. Finally, after all this torment, I can kick you in your oddly spherical... Wait, why are you laughing? Huh? Wait a minute. Wait! Yeah, we aren't done yet. Remember how much I loved Labyrinth Zone? Well, now I get to do it again. In reality, I didn't have all that much trouble with Act 3 of Scrap Brain, though it does suffer from some of the same problems that Labyrinth Zone did. Stop! Hurry up! Overall, Scrap Brain completes the pattern that all the zones seem to have. Fast, slow, and slow. It's a bit strange to me that the game's last major zone isn't all that action-packed, but hey, at least it's nerve-wracking. But I digress. After climbing my way out with what's actually a pretty neat transition between stages, we finally, for real this time, get to face off against Dr. Robotnik. And the fight is super easy. Sonic doesn't have any rings, so getting hit means you have to restart the battle, but it's not that difficult to just avoid the energy orbs. All you have to do beyond that is jump into the capsule thing that Robotnik is in when it rises up. Or down, I guess. It is a little annoying when both of the middle ones pop out at the same time, since there's a chance you'll be on the wrong side of the screen and can't hit him, but bad luck is about all the challenge this boss fight really offers. After you make everything explode, boom, it takes just one hit to finish him off. Yeah, that's right, I'm gonna stand here and watch you crash. With that, Sonic returns to Green Hill Zone, and because I collected all the Chaos Emeralds, nature flourishes. Or something. See, even Sonic's confused. There is no Super Sonic in this game, so this alternate ending cutscene is really the only benefit there is to collecting all the Chaos Emeralds. Well, that and getting to watch Robotnik seethe. He angry. The alternative is him juggling the emeralds and laughing at you, which, weirdly enough, was a surprisingly good motivator to collect them all. Hey, sorry, I'm just cutting in for a moment. You see, I was faffing about doing some research on other stuff while dragging my heels with this video, and I came across an old website detailing some codes and weird stuff in Sonic 1. You know, the level select and the debug mode, stuff like that. I wasn't going to talk about it initially, but this third thing here caught my eye. Something about an item dump or whatever. I'd never heard of this one before, so I slammed my game back in and tried it out. First, you have to sort out the level select, which is just holding A while pressing up, down, left, right, and start in that order on the title screen. Then, after resetting the console, you enter the debug mode by pressing up C, down C, left C, right C, hold A, and press start. Now, you just gotta hold A and start at the same time when selecting the act, only letting go when the level pops up. Simple, right? However, if you do it on the special stage, then go out of bounds by just a bit and fall... Well, at least some of those extra life things finally make an appearance, as well as this other random stuff. From what I read online afterward, this glitch is basically just the game spewing out code in a desperate attempt to reassert normalcy. You can actually collect these Chaos Emeralds, by the way, though I'm not sure I was supposed to do that. Huh. Is this the Cobalt effect? I apologize for the digression, but I was too amused by this not to include it. Anyway, back to the regular video. Ultimately, I had a lot more fun with this game than I expected. It's not that I thought it would be bad, but a lot of posts I'd read online were pretty disparaging toward it. I suppose that's not terribly shocking, as Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 3, and Knuckles all would go on to offer a similar experience, just with more features, quality of life improvements, and streamlined level design. But I really didn't feel the sense of lacking while playing Sonic 1 that I've heard others talk about. You know, like no spin dash, no elemental shields, no drop dash, stuff like that. Everything that Sonic could do in this game was utilized in every zone, sometimes in ways I didn't immediately think of. Ironically, once I got it out of my head that I had to go ultra fast and speed through every level, I was able to appreciate what the game offered way more. Finding little areas off the beaten path, searching for hidden power-ups, or practicing specific acts to memorize their layouts better so that I could go fast. It wasn't the experience I expected, but I really had fun with it. Sonic the Hedgehog for the Genesis is definitely more like a traditional 2D platformer than its successors. And who knows, maybe when I get to later games, my opinion on this one will sour too. Even still, I had a lot of fun with it on my first go, and honestly, I'm looking forward to finally diving further into this series, now more than ever. Anyway, I think that does it for this first part. If you've got to play through Sonic 1 before, what'd you think? I'm really interested to find out, honestly. Also, if you've got any notes on how to make these videos better, I'm all ears, really. I can't give a strict upload schedule, but I do have a few things simmering, so be on the lookout. Thanks for watching. Later! Wait a minute, I just noticed. Jet is covering Silver. Why did I do? Was that on purpose? What? It shouldn't be this funny to me. It's no use.